United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance blog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Poppy.
This is your first and only two-time Dog Heavyweight Champion, Breaker Moran. And you're listening to the Alliance Guys Podcast.
The Alliance blog, the Alliance blog, the Alliance blog. Alliance? If you put an S in front of Alliance, you have Salliance. That's me. Ready up! Put your one, two.
Building an alliance.
Will you join us?
It's showtime.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
You're not here, you missing out, because this show...
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, listen up. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast.
I'm building an alliance.
Will you join us?
Welcome back. Well, I'm welcoming myself back. This is the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. Now, I was expecting, DKM here and Jaden here, and it'd be just like old times, but no. Both of them had better things to do tonight. But you know who stepped up to the plate? My good pal, Rick Del Santo. Rick, what is going on, brother? How are you this evening?
I am great. Thank you for having me yet again. It seems that there's might be a little connection issue, maybe.
With me? Is the mic acting up again?
Yeah. I don't see you on the screen, and the mic was messing up again. There you go. There's a beautiful face.
I don't know. It's
that
looking
sounds
good
better there. Yeah.
It looks good on my end, but if I'm also seeing it here. So
yeah.
Well, let's hope for the best, and we'll try to adjust as we go. Again, the name of the show is the Alliance Guys Podcast, and we are presented by Alliance-Wrestling.com. That's your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. I have spent the last 2 weeks in the UK, and it was quite an adventure. The clips that I was just efforting to show you guys were from RevPro. And that is a promotion based in the UK, one of the bigger wrestling promotions in the United Kingdom. And in the best way possible, Rick, it felt like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla 2005. In it, that wow. it was hard-hitting wrestling. And for one of the bigger wrestling promotions, it felt strange because they have connections with New Japan Pro Wrestling. They have connections with CMLL, and they basically had this venue which was connected to like a college dormitory type thing, and it felt very indie like, and that's not a bad thing, right? it felt primitive in terms of wrestling production. Obviously, it was high caliber wrestling. Michael Oku, the Rev Pro British champion, looked great, and he's in Vegas this weekend. But it looked very primitive. Have you ever checked out Rev Pro before?
I personally haven't. I know I've heard of it. I've read about it, but I've never actually watched it before. I know it's got a lot of steam, and a lot of people are really interested in it.
The crazy thing about it is, so I've only heard good things about it, and you know, guys like Will Ospreay have come from there, guys like Zack Sabre Jr. And even Mercedes Moné is supposed to be there like in 3 days. She's currently the Rev Pro Women's Champion. She'll be defending that title on the 20th in London. So it was cool. It was an opportunity to get out to a wrestling show, and I did do it. It was great. I had a good time, and I strongly recommend all of our viewers here on this show check it out. It's not for everyone. Not everyone's going to like it, but if you're into the AEW style, I think you would enjoy Rev Pro. If you're into like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, I think you'd be into Rev Pro. Not very traditional from like an NWA standpoint, but I think it was good action all the same.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm a huge, I have a huge, if you look at all my DVDs that are boxed up in the other room, it's a huge Pro Wrestling Guerrilla collection in there. So I'm kind of a fan of that style. So I'd love to check it out at some point when I find the time.
The first, the first like 3 years of Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, I think I missed the first show and then went to like the next 10. And yeah, man, those were good times. that was very interesting era of pro wrestling for sure. Willie,
bear with me here. I'm going to try to fix this.
Willie asks, or he mentioned the EVE Women's Pro Wrestling. Willie, that show was airing the day that I came in. I flew into London Heathrow, and after a 10-hour flight, there was just no way I was going to make that show. It was cool. Like I wanted to go, but I just I did not have it in me to do that. Luthez, it's nice to see that underweight guys in Britain can do bad lucha just as bad as underweight Americans. I love Lou. I missed you, Lou. I hope you're doing well, brother. Here's another match. This was the opening match. This was Chris Ridgway. So yeah, wrestling abound. I wasn't able to stay for the whole show. It was unfortunately I had too much going on while I was there. We were literally leaving for Scotland later in the evening, so I ended up leaving a little bit before the show ended. But I did get to see Chris Ridgway, who has ties to the NWA from back when Fight Nation was a part of the NWA back in like 2013, something like that. And I got to see Michael Oku, who was he is the Rev Pro British champion, and he's part of the whole New Japan Strong when New Japan tours the UK, right. US. He ends up wrestling there a lot. Willie Bowen has a joke for us, if you don't mind me reading it, Rick.
Of course.
Hey guys, did you see Tyrus on CSI? He played the part of the chalk diagram of the victim on the street. So the good thing about Tyrus is he has quietly exited the world of pro wrestling. Like, he's still out there doing his thing, and that's cool. But once he retired from the NWA, it's not like he showed up somewhere else. It's not like he's doing MLW or, somehow got himself into TNA. Like, he stayed out of the ring, which that rarely happens in these days. And these days when you see a talent leave the NWA and stay gone,
Yeah. I don't know if anybody be particularly interested in him, with his attitude or, his politics. I don't think that matches a lot of him being kind of politically incorrect at times. I don't think it's going to match up with the modern times. Just my opinion.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think you and I share very similar political viewpoints, and
right.
Oftentimes in the world of wrestling, that don't matter.
Yeah,
and like, I will say this, because I did go to Mexico City and did see Tyrus defend the 10 pounds of gold against Daga back at the World as a Vampire tour, and those Lucha Libre AAA fans, because they weren't NWA fans, like they did not go to that event to watch the NWA. They went to that to see the Smashing Pumpkins and to see Lucha Libre AAA. And when he got into that ring, that crowd went pretty loud for him. And I could say that, like, I know, like, on TV it was just whatever, but being there in that audience, they were cheering for him. And when the match was over,
wow.
Daga got hurt during the match. It was a freak accident. He was doing something and jacked up his leg. It wasn't Tyrus's fault. He didn't injure him or anything. It was just one of those freak accidents. He was doing a move and just blew out his leg. I think he blew out his ACL. But they were very happy with Tyrus. Like, he was even waving the Lucha Libre AAA flag, and it was like,
wow,
what the hell is going on here? If you guys knew how he felt, never mind. I went too far. Wrestling Lulz said, so how is the Foro Solo in the audience? Yeah, Wrestle Lulz, I appreciate you asking me that. It was pretty cool, man. And, I wasn't sure what was going to happen when I was there because, the NWA isn't a super hot commodity internationally, at least not in Mexico. There are several promotions that are would be considered independent. Like I frequent the Crash. I also frequent Luca Libre, which is like an offshoot of CMLL, and then there's like IWRG. There's a lot of independent promotions in Mexico that run throughout the country, and all of them have kind of a bigger standing in the country than the NWA. So from that standpoint, I wasn't sure what to expect. It obviously was a pro Lucha Libre AAA crowd, but like they really responded well to Sal Renaro. He was part of the junior heavyweight title match. I remember, Kerry Morton got so much heat. That was Kerry Morton up until that point was, tiptoeing on like that tweener role. When he was in Mexico, he was a full-blown heel. Obviously, they booed Stevens, who was teaming with Markova. They were behind Camille, but they were also behind Camille's opponent as well. So there was a lot of like back and forth. And obviously, Blue Demon and Vampiro got huge reactions, and they were in the ring with Mecha Wolf and Bestia. It was, I know it wasn't like the best wrestling that the NWA has been associated with, and that environment was really cool, and the crowd was really into it, which was weird because it was it was a concert. It would be like going to Woodstock and in the middle of the show, a WWE match takes off. It was kind of surreal.
Was there like, was it like the wrestling before it, or was it like in between songs or whatever?
Yeah, it was. So when I showed up, there was 2 stages,
right?
And it was a big racetrack. Like Wrestling Lowell said, it was a huge racetrack. So there was a stage over here, and then there was a stage over here in equal, distance from each other. And then the ring was kind of in the closer to the stage on the left, but kind of in between. So they were doing a song, a band was playing over here, the ring was set up, then everyone came when the wrestling started. As soon as wrestling was over, another band was up here. Then when they came off, another band started over here. And so like I told everyone who was asking, why are you going to Mexico? I'm like, I'm gonna go see the Smashing Pumpkins and the NWA. as soon as the show was over, I'm looking at my phone and I realized CMLL is doing a show about 40 minutes away. And I'm like, all right, see ya, Patrick Corgan. I'm going to I'm going to go to the CMLL show. So I boned out on the Smashing Pumpkins. They weren't going to go on till 10, and it was like 7:30. I got to Arena Coliseo like at 8:30, and I got a ticket, got right in front row. It was beautiful.
Wow.
But yeah, Willie Bowen says Sean Mager tire saw a burrito in Mexico. That's the only reason he agreed to go to Mexico. Yeah, I mean, and I look, that was a great move for the NWA, but there was no follow up with it, right? They didn't do anything else really with Lucha Libre AAA that they could have exploited that opportunity to be showcased in front of the Mexican fan base. And you know, we even had Mecha Wolf come onto this podcast, and he and I joked about the NWA doing a show in Tijuana. And I know that sounds crazy, but there's a couple of NWA talents that have that WWE history, like Trevor Murdoch, Mike Knox, EC3, that I think if they did that and then brought in guys like Jack Cartwheel and Willie Mack, along with some of the guys from Mexico, and you could have Mecha Wolf and Bestia, Ray Horas, and I think they could have had something really special, but it never happened.
Yeah.
So Power.
Oh,
NWA brother. Power. Now, I got to be honest. I had not watched last week's episode. I got to be honest. My wife literally had me walking 16,000 steps a day when we were in London and Scotland and all that. So I had all these delusions of grandeur that I might even try to do a pre-party from London. It just was not going to happen. But I did catch this week's Power. And it was a bit of a mixed bag for me, and we're not going to go over the show play by play, but I do want to talk to you, Rick, about the NWA. I know that you had some pretty strong opinions when you and DK were talking about it last week. Overall, what is your sense of the NWA right now? Like, how do you view it as an entertainment company and as a wrestling company?
I'm not going to hold back, I guess. I might hold back a little bit. But when Power premiered, it was my go-to show each and every week. I'm in front of that TV at 6 o'clock because it started at 6:05 on YouTube. I even told my wife, Tuesdays at 6:05, don't bother me for an hour. During those first, when they first started, I said especially after that first episode, I was like, wow, this is amazing. It reminded of the wrestling that I grew up with. It was just amazing, and I loved it. Cole Cabana was in there, and I'm a huge Colt fan. And then all of a sudden, things happened and just kind of sunk. And this has been one of the better episodes that I've seen in a very long time. They kind of go back and forth, but it's since those earliest days of the television, they're having trouble recapturing that former glory, it seems. And they had a more stacked roster then, I guess you could say, as opposed to now they go to a certain area wherever they're working and say, right, currently these tapings are from Texas, correct? It's like use a bunch of guys and then they may bring 2 or 3 on that they really like a lot, and then they'll see them forward. It's not like they're just bringing in something that's released from a major company that they could really be using to their advantage to try to draw people into watching it. It's like nobody necessarily cares about the NWA except for people like you and I or diehard wrestling fans. A lot of people don't even realize that it's happening or that it exists, really.
Yeah. It's kind of a, how do you explain it? It's the talent is there, right? I really feel like
absolutely
the talent is there.
Absolutely.
And the look is there. Like it doesn't look like it was made in somebody's basement, right? I mean, it's pretty good wrestling.
Yeah. There's things I could do without. We can get into that a little bit later, but production values have picked up quite a bit as of late, and the setup, the backgrounds, and all that stuff have picked up. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. Yeah. Look, you at least are nice about it. DK would just tell me to shut up for a minute. But I feel like where the NWA is struggling is, like you said, like something good will happen for the NWA. They'll get a windfall. Hey, that's some goodwill. And then they kind of blow it. You know, like getting on CW, I feel like even though they didn't have a backup plan for the international audience, was by and large an interesting move for them.
Right.
But then they couldn't capitalize on it. There is no new network. They're on Twitter. Believe it or in my opinion, that is a social media site that is not known for watching videos. That is a site that is typically used for, short debates, short format debates. People talking about, hey, I like this. No, you don't like this. You like this. And it gets real stupid, right? But
yeah, and less and less people are being part of Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. It's more people are jumping ship, and it's, regardless of what we're saying, we don't have to get into it, but because of the politics involved in X and Twitter, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people are jumping ship because they don't want to have to deal with a lot of that kind of stuff.
And can you blame them? Like,
no.
Look,
I'm here to be entertained. You know what I mean?
In the old days, we used to use the internet as a way to escape from the real world. And now it's like, I can't even use the real world to escape from the internet.
Right.
It could be very toxic. And I'm not saying, like, look, politics aside, X is a toxic platform.
Yeah.
People are literally just there to shit on one another. Like, I don't like you, so every time I see you, I'm going to fight with you. I'm going to leave negative comments. It's dumb, man. I don't participate in it because it just doesn't do me a lick of good, but
spend less and less time on social media as a whole, because it's not good for your soul. You know what I mean? And you end up arguing. Like,
yeah. And I think you agree with me too, that if I didn't have a platform that I was trying to promote, if I didn't have this YouTube page and the website, man, I don't even know if I'd be on social media. And that's not to say that I don't have fun doing some of the things that I do, but it just feels very toxic and sometimes very artificial. So like I try to inject positivity wherever I go, but they're bringing it all back to the NWA. Like, I don't feel like X was a good fit in the beginning. I still don't feel like it's a good fit. Wrestling Lol says NWA should move to YouTube instead. Like, yeah.
Well, the reason what I think DK said last week was because of or maybe it was it Jaden said because of the payment options that they get. They're not happy with it. But I don't know if they're pulling in on X, to be honest with you, what they're pulling in, if anything at all. They're uploading at 6:00 at night and dropping it, and how many people are tuning in being like, oh, gotta go to Twitter to watch NWA.
And I know that so the little bit I know about Twitter's monetization policies and how they pay out, it's not even based on how many people are watching it, it's based on how many people are engaging in the content. So like, with that being said, like, I think it would be a way better deal for them to flip things around, where right now you could watch on YouTube matches from NWA Power and matches from the NWA's past. But if you want to watch Power as it's presented, you have to watch it on X. In my humble opinion, and I'm not super savvy about this, but if you put shorter matches on X, you would probably get more engagement with those. And then YouTube putting the show as a whole, you're getting more watch time. That's what I would think. And the more watch time you have on YouTube, the higher the compensation is. So I feel like they have it ass backwards. But
look at what the WWE is doing. Obviously, this is the be-all, end-all, basically, of major professional wrestling is the WWE. They have that show WWE Speed on there, which is about 5 minutes long. You know what I mean? I think most matches have a 3-minute time limit. Fast-paced matches, tournaments. There's no reason why the NWA can't jump in and try something like that instead of putting a whole 45-minute episode, because I end up putting up X on my laptop, which I never use it unless I'm on my phone, so that's the only time I go to it, and then watching while I'm working, really. Wasting my time working. sit there and watch it. It's I don't know how many people are actually engaging in it. I don't really pay attention to that, but I want to know how many people are liking it, actually watching it, and stuff like that. Because I feel like it's had to have gone downhill since leaving YouTube, since seeing CW, and they really haven't, like you said, maximized the CW option. They could have done so much more with doing maybe live specials or specials in general, because now all those pay-per-views that they were doing have all gone away. They're using those one events as regular TV tapings now, and then putting them up, here NWA Hard Time for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or what have you.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, the NWA has demonstrated, has the capability to put up a 3-hour long event on YouTube.
Yes.
You see that with Exodus Pro, and
Okay.
and we get it. I mean, I get that they are not charging for their content, whether it be on X or on YouTube, and that's kind of cool if you're a fan and you don't want to spend a lot of money. But and I don't know if you guys discussed it last week, but I mean, a very humble compensation program where, like, an NWA subscription where you pay like $5 a month and you get access to the pay-per-views, or maybe even something a little bit more greater, like at $10 a month, where you get access to the pay-per-views when they happen, and then those matches could still be fed out as content later in the week, and it doesn't have to be. I get that there's money saving ideas here. You do this big signature live event outside of the TV studio, and this is supposed to be a premium version of Power, but I feel like you're creating all this content and then not distributing it quickly enough. And
Yeah.
I feel like you're also sacrificing potential eyeballs, because when, for this week's episode of Power, it was initially advertised Aaron Stevens versus Thom Latimer, but this match was filmed back in, like, I think January.
It had to have been.
Yeah, and it's now April. We're watching this match.
Well, they did the tribute to Jax Dane as well during the episode. He died Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So that's how far behind we are in months. This is like WCW in 1994. They would go to Universal Studios, and 2 days they would record 4 or 5 months worth of TV tapings. To go back to what you said about the tiers in YouTube, you could also be TNA once they lost their TV contract with whatever channel it was prior to being bought by going to Access. They had a tier because people weren't able to get the weekly TV, where you can pay $1 a month to be paying the TV to get the TV show. $5 a month, you'd be able to get that plus a live special. Why isn't the NWA utilizing this? I'm sure there's enough. I mean, by now, I don't know if there's enough, because I think that they've kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit over the time. But at one time, the NWA was hot and people were very interested. They really could have cashed in and capitalized on something like that.
Yeah, and again, the goodwill goes right out the window when you squander these opportunities. At Hard Times 5, Rhino shows up. We know this because Rhino is already announced as the main event for the Crockett Cup again, or at least maybe not the main event, but the world title match.
Right.
And that would have been awesome and surprising if we could have saw that live and building up towards that pay-per-view, or I'm going to call it a pay-per-view. If Crockett Cup was a pay-per-view and Hard Times was a pay-per-view, we could watch that and it would be a build to one another. Yep. And you could still produce these power matches. But the fact of the matter is that for cost-cutting measures, I'm not sure. And look, I get it. It's not cheap to produce wrestling.
Right, yeah.
But I feel like there has to be a better way than what they're doing. And X isn't it. And even though YouTube is to me, it's a smarter alternative. I don't think that's it either. And you're a YouTube content creator. You're monetized. I'm a YouTube content creator. I'm monetized. The more I produce, the more I earn back.
Yes.
And to me, having a subscription tier where you could have access to the pay-per-views as a subscriber, a paid subscriber, a member, and then have regular Power episodes for everybody else, but I get to see it firsthand. I get to see all that content firsthand. I think that would be in their best interest.
And for the while, they were doing their episodes on, if you remember, Fight for the paid subscribers on Tuesday. They'd be on YouTube. They'd be on YouTube for free on Friday. So they gave you 4 days if you didn't subscribe to it. You know what I mean? To be able to watch it for free.
In 4 days.
Yeah, it's not much, but I was always a subscriber because I was like, I wanted to see the NWA. Like I was die hard as soon as, Power came on.
And I think they also lost a lot of goodwill when they left Triller because all of us had been paying for those pay-per-views. We lost access to them.
And they didn't even fulfill the obligations to the fans where they said that if you pay, the $50 up front for a year, they would give you extra events exclusively to those. They never once. It was the pay-per-views, the TV. They never gave us anything extra as promised.
And then they started doing the USA show on YouTube, which again, that to me is also bad. But look, I can forgive that. But
I loved the USA show. I thought it had so much, potential. But what are the last 2 seasons, maybe, if that? Yeah. And it was a lot. It was shorter. It was fun. It was more fast paced. It was more. I preferred that over Power at one point because it's more like the old school NWA watching the TV because there's more fast paced and kind of a little bit of craziness here and there. And all of a sudden it just never came back.
And the guys in the chat have heard us say this 100 times. Like they should totally bring USA back, but make it focused on the territories where you
Not a bad idea. Yeah.
You grab one match from the territory. Like this is what we're going to highlight. And then maybe a match that wasn't aired on Power, like a dark match or something. And that way that you're giving the fans something different, but the same.
Kind of like how WWF back in the day did primetime wrestling, where they would show matches from different arenas. They would show a match from a house show. You could definitely tell that they were all from different arenas.
Right?
It was to me that was interesting. It was cool as heck to watch that.
Yeah, and look, we could go on and on about what the NWA should be doing, and there are some things that I do want to talk about as far as that goes too. But let's bring it back to Power because I do want to address. You and I were talking offline. Power has been a roller coaster this since January. Like I feel like there's been stuff that has been excellent. There's stuff that's been absolute trash. I feel like they've been trying to experiment with different ways of telling stories. I feel like most of that has been missed. Like, I get it. You're trying to entertain us in a different way, but I don't feel like the creative is as good as maybe they might have thought it was.
Yeah.
And when they produce all of this, it's in an echo chamber. They don't know how the fans are going to react to it until 4 months after it's already in the can. And so if you spent the last 4 months recording vignettes and segments and it's just not hitting, you're kind of stuck with that for the next 4 months because, you can't waste footage. I mean, I don't feel like the NWA is at a place where they can throw away content that's already been created.
Yeah, I get that, or save it for something different. You know what I mean? Save like a promo for a YouTube, like a free YouTube thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it just seems like they concentrate, do something, change, because a lot of it's pre-taped. So they could just say, hey, I don't know if this is going to work. You can't be. How are the fans in the crowd reacting? You know what I mean? That should be the clue on to whether or not they should be able to air this stuff. But I mean, if that didn't work or there's a botch in a match, because they are airing full-blown matches where it's just like a botch fest. They're just not even caring, and I'm just like, what is going on here? As I'm watching, I'm cringing, and they should just know, let's put that in the vault. We can use it Christmas special or some random thing that we don't have footage for all of a sudden.
Or chop it up, right? Chop it up and maybe just put content as shorts. I mean, shorts pay all right on YouTube as well. I mean,
I've been killing it with shorts lately. Yeah. So
Wrestling Lulz, I am reading the chats, man, and everything that you're saying I plan to get to because you're making some pretty good points. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Wrestling Lull says, the thing is, Jay, if you're seeing this, the territories all have their own ways of watching them as well. I get that. And that's another maybe bigger issue that I have too is, again, I have this channel and I know the analytics for this channel. I won't dare to try to comment on what Rick does or what anyone else is doing and how they create content, how they're making money off of their content. But for most of 2023, you had 3 separate shows on this channel. You had the pre-party with me, which was just a show that basically a pre-show for the NWA Power. Then you had the other Alliance guys who would air on Wednesday, and they would mostly talk about NWA USA or MLW or things of that nature. And then you had this show, the Alliance Guys podcast, where we would talk about mostly the NWA, but wrestling in general. And having 3 shows every week, my numbers were better in terms of the analytic, how many people were watching, how much money the channel was generating, as opposed to 2024 when the other Alliance guys went on hiatus. Now that they're back, I'm seeing that the numbers are going up again. So what all that is to say that Exodus Pro, St. Louis, WLW, Joe Kazana Promotions, Crossfire, NWA Southwest, or Texas, I should say, whether it be Dog Pound or TSW, NWA New Mexico, if these promotions all under that NWA banner started creating content under the NWA banner on the YouTube channel, there would be more eyeballs available to see it.
Right.
Because you would direct, if I'm NWA New Mexico, I'd say, okay, fans, thanks for hanging out on our YouTube channel for all these years. Now you go to NWA YouTube, youtube.com NWA. Not only will you see our show every week, but you'll see this, and this. And there's more opportunity for more eyeballs. And you could still, whoever's administrating the NWA YouTube account, the analytics shows you who's watching what, and you can compensate those promotions based on what they're earning. So like if JCP is the most viewed NWA YouTube channel, I don't know if that's true or not, then that content would obviously generate income. You could, hey, we have, spreadsheets. This is how much this is earned. Here you go, JCP.
Right.
This is what Exodus Pros earned. Here you go, EC3. Hey, this is what New Mexico earned. Here you go. And it would benefit everybody. There'd be more watch time on the channel. There'd be more content on the site. And to me, that's a no-brainer.
Right. But the more content on your channel that's there on a daily basis, the better your channel is going to get, the more people that are going to view it. So they should just combine a lot of it, whether the territories want to add shorts, clips, matches individually. If the main channel adds the shows weekly, you can have 5 shows a week or however many territories there are, whatever. Look at the Memphis show, the United Network Wrestling Network. They run all the United Wrestling Network shows on their channel. That channel is doing outstanding. I watch all the shows through that channel. I don't go to the individual territories through there.
Yeah. You got Derby City. You've got Championship Wrestling now back. I think Derby City's still on hiatus. But then you got regular Memphis, and then you I think Dustin Starr does an Inside Memphis where they talk about the show. It's kind of more like a podcast type show.
Right. Yep. There is a podcast type show. Yeah.
And I feel like, the NWA should mimic that model. And you know what? I'm willing to say maybe you have NWA Power and then the NWA territories and have them as 2 separate channels. But I still feel like that would be helpful in creating some synergy across the brands, galvanizing an audience in one place where they could watch all of it. James H. Jackson says maybe an NWA Plus subscription on one NWA YouTube channel. Exactly.
That would be lovely. I would love for them to get a subscription service, but they have to build that audience first. And I don't think they're quite there. They tried it out with Fight during the pandemic, and they kind of failed at it. And it seems like every time they're doing something great, it's just when they get knocked back down, and I'm not trying to say or rag on them the whole time that I'm here, but we've mentioned it every time they seem to be, going forward. It's, oh, the fight deal had expired, we're done. CW, I know it was dead in the water, prior to Wrestling Lil said that. I know it was dead in the water prior to going on there. It wasn't going to work. WWE, NXT was coming to CW, but they also did nothing to utilize it. That's when everything went pre-recorded, and it didn't matter,
I think Paula Abdul said it best: one step forward, two steps back. We come together because opposites attract. Sorry. Yeah, if I can reference Paula Abdul in 2025, I'm going to do it. It does feel like, and it's hard being an NWA fan. And Rick, I know you go back a long ways too, and I'm not sure exactly where you picked up again, but I've been following the NWA very extensively since 2000s. We were watching NWA Wildside on the American One Network on dial-up internet.
I was getting it. I was getting Wildside here. It was was it earlier 2000s, right? 2004, 2005, roughly around there. I was getting NWA Wildside. I was getting it here. It was aired at was it 12 o'clock at night here in Connecticut every Saturday rather, and I watched it. I watched that, and then they ran TNA Explosion at the time, who was still affiliated with the NWA at the time. So it was like I was getting two NWA broadcasts together in a way, and they ran like some classic wrestling show right after that. I think it was the Savoldi's show.
Sure.
So I had discovered the NWA, like I said, a couple of weeks back, 86, 87, around there. And I've always been a supporter. When they separated from World Championship Wrestling, I was always still an NWA fan and always supported no matter what. I've been to many NWA shows over the years, in New Jersey in the 90s and the earlier 2000s. Connecticut never had their own territory. But I've always been some sort of, during the tape trading days, I was continued to get tapes with those three letters on it. So I've always been a big supporter. In the 2000s, in the relationship with TNA, I was blown away because here I am getting what seemed like a major, they were actually getting something major back to those three letters.
Yeah. For me, similarly, when I was a kid, and I think we're pretty close in age, Rick, I was a kid and cable came into, Lakewood, California. I'm 46. I'll be 47 in November.
I'll be 50 this year, so we're not too far off.
No. So we're right about the same age. So I remember when when cable came in and we got TBS, and lo and behold, I was watching Superstars, I was watching Glow, because those were on my local independent channels, and then we got we got cable. So I was watching Jim Crockett Promotions under the name of the NWA, and I loved it. And we were watching the pay-per-views, and because we didn't have a lot of the territories, all I had access to was what was on TV, which was JCP. When that went away and they became WCW, I just thought that's what happened, and it wasn't until the late 90s when I found out that there was still an NWA, and that was because of Dan the Beast Severn wearing the 10 pounds of gold on a UFC fight. So it's like, I've said this before, Dan Severn saved the NWA, not just for me, but for everybody. Once he started appearing with that 10 pounds of gold, membership went up. Once he appeared on Raw as the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, membership went up, and you got, it went from Dennis Corluzzo in NWA Jersey. Then you had Joe Price in NWA Florida. You had Howard Brody was still in Florida. You had Ken Taylor in NWA Southwest, and you had Ed Schumann in NWA Midwest. And these members were growing and growing and growing. Things were looking positive. Then they started working with TNA. At start, a very good deal for everybody, and things fell apart. Then, it took a few years, but the NWA started getting back at it, kind of powered by Dave Marquez and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. They had some pretty good stuff going on. And then the NWA ownership changed through a lawsuit. And you had NWA putting they're superstars on New Japan programming. I mean, you had Rob Conway defend the 10 pounds of gold at Wrestle Kingdom. I mean, what the hell? Like, could you imagine today if Thom Latimer was on Wrestle Kingdom?
That would be amazing. Yeah. It would be huge for the NWA, but it's something I don't think like Billy would pull the trigger on. It seems, you know what I mean? A relationship with, I think it's too up in his head that he's trying to build something. And don't forget, this is what are we, 8 years into a 20-year plan? 7 years into a 20-year plan? So he still has a lot to do in a short amount of time, you know?
Yeah. And Wrestling Will said, well, they had that relationship with ROH too. Yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff that has come and gone.
Yeah, there definitely was. But sorry, Jay, yet again, cutting you off again. There was a lot of cool stuff that did happen, but that's all earlier on through the relationship. I mean, that relationship just kind of fizzled out after. I think the pandemic happened, did it not? Right around that time period? Yeah. Because imagine if that didn't happen, the pandemic didn't happen, imagine what could have happened during that time period.
I had bought my tickets to the Crockett Cup 2020 that was supposed to take place in Atlanta, but not at the TBS or the PBS broadcasting studio. It was supposed to be at this smaller arena that was used for a college basketball team. And there was no doubt in my mind that was going to feature not only Marty Scurll winning the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship, which would have been absolutely bonkers, especially with what happened with him later, but we would have seen, we would have still probably had Eli Drake instead of LA Knight. We'd still probably had Eddie Kingston. I mean, they were building towards an Eddie Kingston and the Pope feud. They were building towards Eli Drake and Nick Aldis at some point. Like, they had so much good stuff going on, and then the pandemic came and just effed everything up.
I remember them doing a pre-video about when they were going to that arena for the Crockett Cup. Nick Aldis was there showing it off. I was like, in my head, I was like, I wonder if they could really fill this. You know what I mean? Because at the time they were still, but they did the fairgrounds and they did a really good crowd at the fairgrounds for the 71st. What was it?
That was a 70. That was
70. Yeah.
That was also built with on the back of Cody Rhodes too. A lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of people don't acknowledge that. I'm like, no, man, that feud with Cody Rhodes,
it was awesome.
The NWA so much further and faster. And they lost. To be honest, they lost Dave Lagana, and I feel like that hurt the NWA quite a bit in terms of creative. And then they lost. Josephus passed away, and again, that was also part of the creative. Whether you loved him or not, he had a hand in the creative. You lost Dave Marquez with the Primetime Live series. Him and Billy split after that, and there was a lot of animosity between those two after that, and I feel like that hurt the quality of the show.
I feel like Dave Lagana was probably the filter of Billy's creative and said, no, this is going to work. No, this isn't, kind of a thing. Because once he was gone, that's when it kind of, was back and forth. And, Marquez, to me, he's a gem in the world of professional wrestling. Everything he does, it's very creative. His products that he puts out are not necessarily garbage, regardless from, I was watching NWA Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I would get the videos here in Connecticut. There's just something that the fact that I guess he wasn't brought back after the pandemic, and he seemed pretty, I don't know, from his social media post, kind of upset about it. But he was a gem that should have been used, him in the podium, and then they replaced him with Kyle Davis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Marquez should have been brought back. Personal opinion.
What Dave is to wrestling, and people have this misconception about Dave. First of all, they think he's a misogynist and an asshole, and that might be true. And I'm his friend. I can say that. I mean, I don't think he's a misogynist. I've heard somebody call him racist. I'm like, how is he racist? His show has more African-American talent than almost any other wrestling promotion out there. He himself is Puerto Rican. He's featured Puerto Rican wrestlers for years. He's featured Latino wrestlers for years. He's had his championships on people from Japan. I mean, I don't see how he can be racist, but whatever. We'll let that slide. He is not a creative when it comes to wrestling. He is a producer. And when you see his show, like, he's not the one writing the matches and the bookings. He has somebody for that. What he does is polish it. So you come to him with an idea. Hey, this is what we want to do. Oh, have you thought about this? Did you think about this? Can we do this? And he kind of just keeps scrubbing and polishes everything that he touches. And that's why when you look at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, like right now, that show, if you're watching it today, that's being produced by Peter Avalon, Zicky Dice, and to a lesser extent, Danny Limelight.
Right.
Those are the guys who are in charge of creative. And Dave is just there to help polish it up and make it look good. Dave is a producer for television shows, not necessarily a wrestling mind. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't know what a good wrestler looks like, and it isn't to say that he isn't good at finding talent, because he's the guy that brought Fergal Devitt from Ireland to the U.S. He was the guy that first gave Carl the Machine Gun Anderson opportunity. He was the guy that put Eli Drake, L.A. Knight, and Brian Cage together as a tag team. I mean, he knows how to create stars, but it's not the wrestling. It's everything else that he's good at. And and I feel like he brought that to the NWA as well.
Yeah.
But it's funny because we talk about spotlighting, and this brings a good segue to talk about what I want to talk about next is, Bruce Tharpe was never able to capitalize on the growth of the NWA when we had Rob Conway defending the 10 pounds of gold in New Japan Pro Wrestling. The title was on, Kojima, the title was on Tenzin, and they were never able to capitalize on that. It was cool, but they weren't able to capitalize on that. And we saw that, a few years ago, or I guess last year, when you had EC3 literally taking the title to Australia, taking the title to Canada, the UK, and then wrestling in All Japan Pro Wrestling, which should have been a huge deal. And there were crickets coming from the NWA.
That was the first time the NWA title had been in All Japan in many, many moons, I believe.
Like 1989.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And there was crickets. The NWA didn't capitalize on that. They didn't say, hey, can we use that footage to show on Power? Like, good Lord, why didn't you do that? Like,
they could have, older promotions used to be, hey, there was a match in Japan. They used to show a clip of, say, the last 2-3 minutes. You know what I mean? WCW would do that all the time. If they, in the earlier 90s, they would show matches, Brian Pillman and Jushin Liger from Japan. They would show that clip.
And I feel like it's almost a crime that never got airplay in the U.S.
Yeah. Right.
And that I think would have helped solidify EC3 as a bigger deal within the NWA if NWA fans could have seen that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I just feel like EC3, I think he did a lot of good for the NWA title while he took that belt all over the world, kind of give it a little bit more prominence, but it didn't, like you said, get the recognition that possibly it deserved.
And they didn't. And I think the biggest crime is, again, you had somebody out there. The first guy since Nick Aldis, God, that hurts to say it. The first guy since Nick Aldis who went out there and put that belt in everybody's face and said, look, I am the world's champion. Like, look, as much as I love Trevor Murdoch, as much as who else? I love Trevor Murdoch. I wasn't a huge fan of Tyrus. I wasn't a huge fan of Matt Cardona. When Cardona was champion, he carried the belt around, but it was second fiddle. Even to his own internet championship that he has, it was the NWA title wasn't the prominent thing. When EC3 was champion, that title was everywhere. That EC3 was.
And as hot as Matt Cardona was, do you think that he got any attention on the NWA?
I think initially, yes. But you got to remember at the time that he was NWA World Champion, he was also wrestling for TNA, and then GCW, He gets hurt in GCW, and it was a freak accident. Like, it wasn't like a hardcore match or something.
Part of the game, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't blame Cardona for getting hurt. It was just such an inopportune time for that to happen. And there was very little momentum that you could have gotten with Cardona at that point. But for the little bit of time he was champion, I mean, he did that match with TNA where he won the digital media title. And it was just like, it wasn't, the NWA wasn't his primary focus. Where I feel like EC3 was out there, I am the NWA's world champion, EC3. It was, I am Matt Cardona, and look, I've got the 10 pounds of gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's the question that I have for you is, another opportunity has been presented to the NWA. We've seen just a couple of weeks ago, Thom Latimer defending the 10 pounds of gold against Bishop Dyer for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. Thom has also been scheduled to come back to Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling on May the 10th. Wait. I have a graphic for it. We've got on May the 10th, Thom Latimer will defend the 10 pounds of gold against Stu Grayson at Northern Rising. That's the Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling event. You can watch that on Triller, or if you live in Canada, obviously you could go to the Mattamy Athletic Center, formerly known as the Maple Leaf Gardens. Is Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, is Scott D'Amore, is he booking Thom Latimer, or is he booking the NWA World Heavyweight Champion? What do you think, Rick?
That's a good question. We got to look into that. Like, is he booking Thom Latimer? Because he's booking a lot of the top talent from various organizations, people that are leaving various organizations. You know what I mean? So, is he booking the NWA World Champion? That's a great question to look at it. He's bringing in. They don't have their own championship. I don't think.
Yeah,
they need a good main event. Sorry. They need a good main event and a good title match for their show. I mean, he could be booking that NWA World Champion. Personal opinion.
Yeah. So they will be crowning a new champion.
They will.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the works. But the reason why I asked this is because these are the kind of things that keep me up at night, Rick. And I can't just turn that off. This kind of shit is what keeps me up at night when I'm supposed to be sleeping next to my beautiful wife and dreaming about all the fun stuff we're going to do. No, I'm thinking about Scott D'Amore booking Thom Latimer, who had ties to TNA Wrestling when Scott D'Amore was still behind the scenes producing for them, or is he booking the 10 pounds of gold? And the reason why I asked that is, would he have booked EC3 if EC3 was still world champion?
Good question. He does have a connection to EC3 though too, so.
Well, and that's the thing. Like I have to believe that the entire NWA roster is available to work these shows. If Thom could work them, then I believe that anybody in the NWA is fair game. Like hey, Trevor Murdoch and Mike Knox are a pretty badass tag team that would look good on your pay-per-view. As much as people kind of maybe are over Carnage and Damage, I feel like Blunt Force Trauma would be very interesting to see in a new environment. Even with Aaron Stevens as their manager, if you have a decent tag team in Canada that you need to get over, a victory over the former NWA World Tag Team Champions might be a good move. I mean, Carnage and Damage have been very impressive in the NWA. I feel like, again, Maple Leaf Pro, would they be able to book those guys? And then so all these questions kind of formulate into my mind. Is Scott D'Amore using the 10 pounds of gold to get people to pay attention to Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling? Mm-hmm. Is he throwing Billy Corgan a bone saying, hey, look, I want to feature your guy because I feel like we can help each other? Or is he helping out his pal Thom Latimer from his days in TNA?
Right.
And there is no wrong answer here, right?
Right. Yeah.
But if Maple Leaf is booking the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and so far his two matches have been Bishop Dyer, who was Baron Corbin in the WWE. Pretty
Right.
well-known name. And the second match is against Stu Grayson, who isn't a main event guy, but he's a big talent. He's got some more name recognition than probably half the guys in the NWA roster. Is Scott D'Amore booking the world's heavyweight champion in Maple Leaf Pro better than the NWA is booking the world's heavyweight champion? I mean, the title matches that are coming up for Thom in the NWA, we know that he faces Carson Drake at Hard Times. We also know that he recently wrestled Carson Drake and JR Kratos in back-to-back nights at the Grilled Cheese Festival in Sacramento. Wasn't televised. Some of the other opponents that Thom Latimer has been Brian Idol and Joe Ocasio. And I'm not trying to put down any of these guys, but
yes. How much is it? How much are they going to draw either?
Right. And where's the star? Where's the star power?
Right. And no offense to somebody like Carson Drake. I know that, is he still a TV champion? Yes.
I think as far as TV goes, yes.
Yes.
But I think as far as actually, I think he forfeited the title to challenge for the 10 pounds.
Gotcha. Is Thom Latimer and Carson Drake going to are they going to draw? And the part about professional wrestling is drawing and making the money, correct? And so how many people is it going to make, say, Jay, are you interested in going to see Thom Latimer wrestle Carson Drake? Or Joe that's sitting at home at, are you interested in watching? It's got to be something and it's got to be booked properly on TV to build up, to make you get off your behind, be like, I need to go to the arena to see that matchup.
That's another interesting point, right? Because in the past, so the NWA is pretty smart how they're running these events, right? You've got Brian Idol, who is scouting these cities. He's got these areas where the NWA is running. They are so over in Dothan, Alabama, and which is perfect.
It's perfect, yeah.
That it should be a staple for them. Obviously, I don't think they should be doing more than 2 shows a year there unless they're running more frequently. But 2 shows a year there, I think, is perfect for the environment that they're in. They don't need to even have the world title in that match, and I think they would have the same crowd there because it's a audience that's hungry for wrestling. It's an audience that grew up with that, pardon the term, Southern fried wrestling, and it's enough. The NWA historically is enough to be a draw without a top star. You don't need to go get Matt Cardona on that event because I don't think anybody's going to pay 1 cent more because Matt Cardona is wrestling for the title as opposed to Carson Drake. However,
right,
where you go to other towns, the requirements are going to be different. Now, the show that you and I are both going to attend on May 17th in Philadelphia, the Crockett Cup, obviously the Crockett Cup, I think, is the draw to me.
Yes. Yeah,
but
it's the brand that people are going to come out for.
But bringing in Rhino in ECW home turf, I feel like was a very smart move. And I've heard other people go, well, why not Rob Van Dam? And I'm like, yeah, that's not a bad idea either. There's a lot more history with Rhino and Thom and Rhino and Billy Corgan than there is Rob Van Dam and any of those guys. So I feel like that's probably why Rhino gets the nod over, say, someone like RVD. But I feel like putting Rhino in the ECW arena against Thom Latimer, that's going to be kind of a draw.
Right.
But I don't know if that's a draw in, say, Los Angeles or in Houston or in Las Vegas. So, yeah, the NWA has a problem that they haven't figured out a way to create new stars. And what we're seeing here as demonstrated by Maple Leaf Pro, and look, they're not the only ones, right? Because May 2nd, Thom Latimer wrestles against Silas Young in IWR. And this isn't even the first time these guys have squared off either. And Silas Young is a guy who, I mean, it's been a while, but he was a former ROH 2-time television champion. and he's got ties to the NWA. He was a 3-time NWA Midwest champion. He had challenged for the 10 pounds of gold a couple of times against Adam Pearce and the Sheik. He's a guy that, for all intents and purposes, I don't know why he's not in this NWA as a talent who could help grow the brand a little bit. I know he's not as young as he was, but I still think there's value in there. I feel like now we're seeing the NWA World's title being treated better outside of the NWA than inside the NWA.
It's more serious competitors for that belt outside, in outside promotions, I guess you could say, is how they're treating it.
Yeah, I mean, look at. I'm going to pull it up here just so we can be on the same page here. I'm looking up Thom Latimer title defenses, and so this week on Power, he wrestled against Carnage, and I'll be honest, one of the best Carnage matches I've seen in the NWA, one of the best Thom Latimer title defenses I've seen in the NWA. That was top notch. I was very impressed by that. And if you look at who he's defended the title against in the NWA as World's Heavyweight Champion, he defended against Brian Idol. He defended against Race Allen. He defended against Brian Idol a second time. He defended against EC3. He defended a second time against EC3. He defended against Joe Ocasio. He defended against Brian Idol, and Carson Drake. None of those names, I think, would draw outside of the NWA Tampa's TV studios.
Right.
If that was the match that was presented to you in Connecticut, would you go based on that?
I would go based on the fact that Thom Latimer is coming to my town. Because I'm a fan of his. I'm legit a fan of his. He came to New York for the Awesome Championship Wrestling debut show in Poughkeepsie, defended the title against Tommy Dreamer, lost by disqualification. But it's like, that was a stacked show on top of it. Had talent from TNA, NWA, Tommy Dreamer didn't live far from there, or, came up, not too far from there, his roots, So, I mean, that they were in the the convention center there. I think it was formerly the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, I think, or the White Plains Civic, one of those. But either way, that was a legendary WWF building, you know what I mean? And it was not a terribly big building, a couple thousand people maybe, and this place was packed.
Was that was that in Poughkeepsie?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have the attendance here. I don't think I do, at least. Maybe I do. No, I don't. But and they're planning on holding their second event soon. I know a lot of people that were there. Wrecking Ball wrestled there as well. Alex Taylor was there. So it was I watched it on Fight Triller, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good event. It went a little long, but I thought it was a good event.
And it to me, it's just again, this is a brand that you and I both have been following for decades, right?
Decades, yeah.
And it's a brand that, even when it's not good, we're still supporting it because we think it has potential to be good.
Yeah.
And at this point, I just listed some of the champions, some of the title defenses that Thomas had. Now here's some of his opponents outside of the NWA. Now it's not a huge draw to me, but he wrestled George South last month. He wrestled Bishop Dyer last month. He wrestled in Glasgow, Scotland back in February. He wrestled against Marco Harris in Mississippi. And so, now that I'm looking at that list, it's not all that impressive either. But, the list of challengers that he has in front of him, Silas Young. He's got Stu Grayson. I just feel like maybe the NWA should see hey, maybe we should bring these guys in and continue that story. I like the fact that Rhino is going to be at Crockett Cup, but how cool to have been to see somebody like Bishop Dyer get an opportunity to challenge. Hey, anyone who saw the match on Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, Thom didn't win in his traditional babyface manner. He had to cheat to win. He would have made Eddie Guerrero proud in that moment. But, Bishop Dyer never got his real comeuppance.
Yeah.
And that's a match I feel like Scott D'Amore had literally gift wrapped to Billy Corgan. Hey, you this match happened here, but like, take it, brother.
Wrestling Wells made a comment here. The NWA honestly should bring in the JCW guys to Crockett Cup. I fully agree with that because it's every year they're building towards the Crockett Cup, and it just ends up being a semi-short tournament of all guys you watch each and every week on TV. If you go back and watch the original Crockett Cups, this stuff went on forever. There was teams coming in from different territories to wrestle. So it would make sense, and it would make, in my opinion, way more interest. It would make it more interesting and fun to watch if you had a tag team from JCW, bringing a tag team from Crossfire that maybe people that watch Power each and every week haven't seen. Not everybody that watches Power is going to watch the other brands because I don't even know if some of them, I don't know if Crossfire has any kind of streaming. I've looked before, but I don't know if they have any kind of, if they create content at all. So
they do have a channel, and I know James H. Jackson knows it. If he's in the chat, he should write it. I think it's like it's not Triller, but I think it's like Wrestling Fight Network or something like that. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, I'd even go a step further and say, like, look, when they reintroduced the Crockett Cup back in title match, that's what it is. When they reintroduced the Crockett Cup back in 2018. They partnered with Ring of Honor, which brought them tag teams from CMLL and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, I can admit that you're not going to get Satoshi Kojima and, Hiroshi Tenzin to compete at the Crockett Cup in 2025. And I don't think you're going to get Arez and, Templiaro to wrestle at the Crockett Cup in 2025. But there are other organizations out there. And, I know this could be a controversial take, but why not bring in somebody like the Wolf Zaddies from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, the United Wrestling Network World Tag Team Champions, and give them a push in the turn? I mean, look, even at the Crockett Cup that was in Nashville back in, I think it was 2022. I think it was 22. Maybe it's 23. I can't remember right now. I mean, you had Jay and you had the Briscoes, Jay and Mark, win the whole thing. And they weren't NWA regulars at that point in time. And I mean, they even created a tag team with Harry Smith and Doug.
Oh, crap. I know who you're talking about because I was going to bring him up before, but
Doug's, it's not Smith. I know that's not it.
No, I know who you're talking about. Now I forgot his last name.
I can't believe that. Well, no, I can't believe that because I'm terrible. Doug, shit. Anyways, Doug Williams, there it is.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go.
Like they were a great tag team as well.
Yes.
And when they did that, they brought in tag teams from AEW. Like they brought in the Tate Twins, and at the time they were members of the AEW roster.
Didn't they bring in CMLL teams or whatever as well? Did you mention that? Or
no, not this time, but not the Nashville Crockett Cup, but the yeah, they did have tag teams from, I think it was AAA.
Okay.
But anyways, all of that to say, why not bring in tag teams that are available to them now? I mean, the Wolf Zaddies are a good example. The 1%, who are the New Japan Strong Tag Team Champions, they go by the West Coast Wrecking Crew now. Royce Isaac and I forgot his partner's name too. Dave Scooby brings up Midnight Heat.
I'd love to see them come into the NWA, to be honest with you. Those guys, I mean, they've been around for quite some time now, but come on, man. I'm surprised. It's been years now since Billy hasn't brought them in.
Yeah. And there's other teams out there who I think would make a lot of sense. But, like you said, we're going to get the rehash. I mean, we'll see. We're definitely going to have Knox and Murdoch. We're definitely going to have Blunt Force Trauma. We're probably going to have Odinson and Kratos. We're probably going to have Daisy Kill and Talos. And it's like, this is the same exact tournament we had last year.
We watch them each and every week on TV. It's There's not enough variety.
And I feel like that is where, again, a partnership, it doesn't even have to be a partnership. It could just be like a one-off, like, hey, Bad Dude Tito, Che Cabrera, come wrestle in our Crockett Cup. MLW, let's borrow some of your tag teams for this Crockett Cup. I don't think there's a crime in that. This is supposed to be the best tag team in the world, not the best tag team in the NWA. And, one of the coolest tag tournaments I can remember watching was when they were crowning the new NWA World Tag Team Champions. Now, this was after WCW had split from the NWA, but then they kind of came back and they crowned new NWA tag champions. And you had guys from Japan and South Africa and Mexico and all these places. And I mean, like, you had the Steiners in the tournament, but you also had Terry Gordy and
Dr.
Steve
Death
Williams. Yeah. And what the hell, man? This was so cool. And if the NWA were to do something like that, James H. Jackson says, bring in like the infantry, like Dave does from the United Wrestling Network. There's so many good tag teams out there. And I get tag teams are expensive to use, but this is a one-night tournament. It's not even a two-night tournament anymore. You can literally do this in one night. Hell, if it's going to be expensive to do it, then do 2 TV tapings. Do your pay-per-view the night before and then do TV the next night. Whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going off a little bit.
You're good, but you're correct.
I never try to say anything mean for the sake of being mean. I always say it because I want the NWA to be better.
Yes. That's all I want. I want it to be something that, I want it to be just like the show that I grew up watching. You know what I mean? Whether it be Worldwide or Saturday Night, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. They have that potential. The production's there. It just doesn't seem like the booking is there.
Yeah, well, and I think that is one of the biggest problems that the NWA has currently, is that it just doesn't have the creative isn't there.
Yeah.
And how do you fix something that management doesn't acknowledge as a problem?
And what's the budget like too? Are they looking like, I'm not looking to dive deep into this stuff, but how much are they looking to spend on bringing talent in? That's another big thing, And sometimes it doesn't seem like it's that much.
Well, it's weird because like who they would spend money on, like, like.
Well, they bring in Alex Riley at one point under his real name, and it's just like he looked like a shell of his former self when he came in. No offense, Alex Riley, but he looked like he just came wearing in street clothes, participating in the match that he was in for a brief minute.
And it had that real bad botch in the match too. And
this is a guy that at one point had all the potential in the world to become a huge star.
And I don't mind that Billy has an affinity for reclamation projects. I mean, Thom Latimer didn't have the best reputation coming into the NWA, and some people still hold his past against him, but I feel like he has asked for forgiveness. He's put in the work. He's been sober for a few years now. I don't feel like those things should still haunt him.
Look at what the WWE's now working with Lex Luger.
Yeah.
After all the years. And you know what? I sat there the other day talking to my wife about this. I said, I'm so happy. I was watching some documentary, and I'm so happy that I could actually see now Lex Luger smile and not be so miserable all the time because of all of his mistakes in the past. And that he seems pretty well cured. Ever since he found God and he got sober.
Yeah.
I had a chance to meet him about 2-3 years ago at an indie event here. He was brought in for a signing. I got to tell you, he was the complete opposite of the first time I met him during his WWF run. He's a very nice guy. So I got to tell you that.
Yeah. Dave Scooby wants to say that Kerry and Alex won last year, but there was absolutely no storyline follow through. Yeah, they beat the World Tag Team Champions, and we got a few matches out of it, but I don't know, if you win the Crockett Cup, that should be kind of a big deal. It mostly went quiet, Remember when the NWA brought back the Crockett Cup, that's how they crowned the tag team champions. It was PCO and Brody King.
Correct.
And when they lost the titles, we had the wild cards, Royce Isaac and Thom Latimer. And I mean, like, I don't feel like they ever took a step backwards in terms of the tag titles, but like, obviously the tournament has taken a big step back in terms of, what they're presenting. I mean, even last year at the Crockett Cup, the world title, EC3 defended against Sam Adonis, who I don't feel should have been in that spot. Like, he's not in the U.S. He's got name value in Mexico, but like, I feel like his match against EC3 was mailed in. I don't think it was very interesting. There was zero buildup for that matchup, and at least with Rhino, at least they started teasing a build to it, and I'm hoping there's promos that lead up to it. I hope there's some, spoiler alert, when Thom Latimer will be at the IWR Insane Wrestling Revolution. Rhino will be there. They might have something happen at that event. I'm not saying they will, but he's going to be there. That's Rhino's home promotion, is that IWR, and Thom has wrestled Rhino in that promotion multiple times. There could be some sort of interaction that will later end up on a Power, or at least on a social media post that could hype up that Crockett Cup match.
Right.
At least that's my hopes. But again, just all this to say that booking certainly could be improved for the NWA. And I feel like they do have some of the right pieces, but on the other side of the equation, they're missing a lot too.
Yeah.
That, like we just mentioned, the tag team division's kind of stagnant. It's not really exciting. You have some very talented female wrestlers, but I feel like by and large, that whole division is kind of started to fall apart a little bit. You can't keep a female tag team together for very long. What else do we got? Wrestling Lowell says, do you think we can bring in Violent J for booking? I mean, here's the thing. Like, the problem is Billy Corgan thinks he's Vince McMahon. Billy Corgan thinks he's Tony Khan. He thinks that he could run the show and be the owner and book it and everything else. And I kind of pointed to earlier in the show, Dave Marquez. He owns the company, but he doesn't write the script. He doesn't. Yes, he produces talent, but he doesn't book the show. That's up to somebody else. And Billy is a man of many hats.
Dave's also a guy that has like almost 40 years experience in the wrestling business. Billy's technically, I mean, I don't know what, less than 20? If you count his TNA days, yeah.
You count TNA, you can count Resistance Pro Wrestling. I wouldn't really count his appearances with ECW as anything being in the biz, but I mean, he did have an independent promotion, Resistance Pro, in Chicago. I don't know exactly how long that promotion lasted. It was maybe like 5 years. Okay. And that's actually the promotion that, he touched base with guys like Marshe Rocket, Mecha Wolf, Yabo the Clown, Steve Boz, I think, was in that promotion as well. A lot of those guys matriculated into the NWA in more recent days. Even Ego Fantastico was part of those shows, and he ended up in the NWA for a short time too. But all that to say is there's a big difference doing a bi-monthly, 4 or 5 times a show a year, 4 or 5 shows a year type wrestling promotion to what's supposed to be a full-time wrestling promotion in the NWA. And right. I don't feel like they deliver like a full-time wrestling promotion. They film something and it takes 4 months for it to make TV. The WWE films something live and then has replays of it up on their YouTube channel, on their. I understand that there's a huge difference between what the WWE is and what the NWA is, but I don't think Billy Corgan understands that there's a huge difference between the two.
He's not quite on that level. Sorry, Billy, but it's once WWE, say Raw wraps up at 9:30 over here. So,
Yeah.
Within minutes, there's tons of clips on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Sometimes full matches are up on YouTube right away. So, I mean, there's a big difference in that, and that generates a lot of interest with just the brand name. The NWA has not solidified themselves as like that other brand, really. Or it's an alternative, sure. I mean, people, I am, a lot of people are heartbroken over the NWA. I know I've talked to a lot of guys through the, over what happened between their start and, I'm kind of we're all kind of like a cult. We loved the NWA, but they were kind of separating. But I still love those letters. I still love I still go back and watch a lot of the older stuff. It needs to get to that level. And I really hope to see it in my lifetime.
Well, I guess the question is, they were so close pre-pandemic, but like, how much longer do they get a pass for not taking that next step?
Yeah.
Like, again, we can understand that the pandemic screwed a lot of things up. We can understand that, Matt Cardona being injured screwed a lot of things up. We can even understand that maybe, losing the likes of Nick Aldis and, like you said, Ricky Starks and even to a lesser extent, Eddie Kingston, Thunder Rosa, losing all these talents to AEW. Sure, we could acknowledge that they hit some bumps in the road, but like, at what point do they now dust themselves off and say, look, I was there at the ECW arena last year. It's one of the best overall experiences I've had in this Lightning One NWA.
That was my first Lightning One show that I attended. So.
What did you? I guess you and I never really spoke about it, but what did you think of that show? You were there live. I was there live. What did you think of it?
Overall, I thought it was pretty good. I didn't say it was fantastic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was better than a lot of. I don't think it translated well to television when I watched it after.
Not at all.
I think what they also failed with, and now this is kind of maybe minor to the brand, but ECW Arena, they brought in the Blue Meanie and they didn't bring in any other kind of presence of legendary talent in that building, which you would think most people would, correct?
I think when you were in that location, which I think they did kind of learn from their lesson, and that's why we're seeing.
And I know that Billy and Blue Meanie are buddies. You know what I mean? I get that part because he showed up a few times.
Yeah.
To me, that was a mistake. You know what I mean? Because you're going to get the pop when, I don't know, say Guido shows up. Guido's available. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know he's more than available. Tony DeVito's available. There's a lot of people that are available. So, that are running. I know I've seen Guido's doing the independent circuit, the convention circuit. So I'm sure he would still pop up every now and again. So
and I bet if they met the asking, I'm sure Shane Douglas
absolutely
would have showed up eventually. You just keep putting zeros on that check, and I'm sure he'd show up. But it's one of those deals where like they had such a good moment. It was such a feel good moment. Tom won the title, and then it just they didn't capitalize on a spotlight.
Yeah,
and that seems to be the theme of tonight's show is the NWA. Billy Corgan's NWA has failed to realize the potential that they have in front of them. They did it with Cody. They did a great job of maximizing Cody's, 38-day reign as world's heavyweight champion, but they haven't been able to capture that moment since.
Yeah.
And the debut. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just think the Aldis era, when they came in for that era after Aldis won the belt, they started Power, and it was a fantastic run prior to the pandemic. And then then they came back. They stopped creating content during the pandemic period. At first, it was like, all right, we're going to do YouTube content every day. You know what I mean? It seemed. Yep. And then they just stopped and nobody heard. They took all their content off YouTube. And nobody knew if they existed or not for like a good year.
Well, and to that, like, and again, you're bringing up some stuff that maybe some of the people in the chat don't even remember, but yeah, they had during the pandemic, it was kind of coincided with the whole the speaking out movement that
that too, yeah.
It took down Dave Lagana, and I don't want to speak to his guilt or innocence because I wasn't in the room. I don't know. I've known Dave Lagana fairly well, and he has always treated me with the utmost respect. But whatever. When he left the NWA during those circumstances, he was never brought back. They lost a bunch of talent. They weren't able to, as soon as Lagana left, that's when they stopped those weekly daily podcasts. They had Eli Drake show. They had the Nick Aldis show. They had the Carney Town silliness. And there was so much stuff that, they could have, there was nothing stopping them from going and renting a building for 2 months, quarantining inside the building with all these talents and maybe having their families nearby in a hotel or something. Yeah. And look, I'm saying this as somebody who, I probably would have stayed home, but
WWE was doing empty arena main of WrestleManias and TV tapings for a little while in the Performance Center.
WWE was doing it. AEW was doing it. Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, because of the regulations in California, they had to take a knee. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't have done something if you wanted to. Yeah. And they chose not to, and maybe that was the right decision. Honestly, maybe it was, but there was other things that could have happened. And even later in 2021, when the United Wrestling Network started filming Primetime Live, I mean, those were social distancing shows too. There was no fans in attendance. Those matches were on pay-per-view. And that's when we had the falling out between Dave and Billy, where, I'm not exactly sure all the details, but I think it came down to the pacing for the first show went bad, and Aldis was very upset about it and made a big deal about it with Billy, and then that caused a lot of other problems. But the funny thing about all that is then the NWA later would release all those NWA matches from that event and called it Shockwave.
Yep.
And I'm like, wait, I paid for that just 6 months ago, and now I can watch it for free on YouTube.
I bought every episode of I bought a Primetime, and then they ended up giving them away for free on YouTube on the show, and it was just like, what the hell? Yeah.
and then they got upset, and I do believe that there was a point in time where Billy was ready to walk away from all of it. I think that's when they pulled the plug on the YouTube channels. I think they were planning to that was it. And Aldis convinced him to come back, or the fans did. I don't know exactly what happened. Josephus passed away. They used that as a moment to celebrate themselves, which I felt very icky about. And then they did the dumbest thing by, having the question mark number 2 and all that silliness. And I felt like that was very insulting to the legacy of Josephus.
Correct.
So I mean, I guess we're just kind of going back down memory lane here. It's easy to point to everything that they did wrong. They did it.
I think each thing is making them, they're having trouble recovering for them. Every time they keep going forward, something happens. And they suffered pretty hard during the pandemic, you know what I mean? And then just went away altogether, and was my point. And then they could have done some sort of online content, whether it be an empty arena match altogether or just creating like they were podcasts weekly for a while.
There was a point in time that there was more content being generated by this channel about the NWA than the NWA was generating about the NWA, which is kind of funny, but also kind of sad. Because I'm just one guy with 2 pals talking about wrestling, and we had more content about the NWA than they did. All this to say is I really feel like as I'm saying all these negative things about the National Wrestling Alliance, I do feel like Crockett Cup could be another pivotal moment where the NWA can make that right turn.
Yes, sir.
And move forward in a very positive direction. And it doesn't need to be rocket science. You don't even necessarily have to kick Billy out of creative. He could still be in creative, but they need to build up this roster where you don't need Rhino to come in and book a match. Look, I think one of the coolest things about this Crockett Cup is you're having Natty Neihart come in tonight she's wrestling, I think, for
Bloodsport tonight.
Bloodsport, yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's great, man. I think that's awesome. And I think Karrion Kross is wrestling on that show as well. In fact, he's taking on JR Kratos in that event.
That's the one match I'm looking forward to the most. It starts at 11 my time. So, I watch Bloodsport every show that they produce, and it's something that I really, really enjoy because it's just kind of like old school, like kind of like shoot wrestling, I guess you could say, like the old UWF from Japan. And that's the closest thing that I find to it is the Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. So I don't know if you've ever watched that at all. But
I've not ordered the show, but I've seen some of the matches, and I know Royce Isaacs was there, and he had some badass moments for them. And do you remember the term pit fighting?
Yes.
That's what it always I envision as the pit fighting is that's what Josh Barnett's Bloodsport is. Noob is like, let's talk this week's Power. Man, we talked about Power. The best part of Power was Carnage and Thom Latimer. That match to me was epic. That's the best Carnage has ever looked. And he's a former tag team champion. That he looked like a credible threat to win the title. Never at one moment did I think he was going to beat Thom Latimer, but
no.
God, he looked good in that match. I mean, do you agree? Do you disagree?
I agree. I was I kind of knew that Aaron Stevens was going to get out of it. You kind of suspect that, right? He's the great. I think he's first off comedic gold. All right, he's possibly one of the greatest things that the NWA has going for him. Okay, look at that. I said something positive about the NWA. All right, so I do have some positives. Aaron Stevens, it's the way he presents himself as a heel manager, but he's also very funny as well with some of his zingers that he pulls out of. Just seems to come out of nowhere, and you kind of just knew that he was going to get out. He's the heel manager. Thom Latimer, to me, he's a great NWA World Champion. Okay, taking on Carnage, who I feel is an amazing talent, and this was a fun match. You knew what was going to you knew that Thom Latimer wasn't ready to drop the title. Obviously, he's supposed to defend it in Philadelphia. So, but I did not walk away disappointed in this matchup.
Because of the taping schedule, I feel like it's another spoiler alert because we
absolutely
already that Thom was going to face Carson Drake at Hard Times, so we kind of know that he was still going to be world champion at the end of this night. And until the TV taping schedule changes, that's just how it's going to be.
Right.
I kind of wanted to see Aaron Stevens in this match because fundamentally, he's probably one of their best talents even now.
Yeah. He's an amazing wrestler. I'll tell you that.
He is an old school talent. Like he came up through the old school. Like he did the territories. He wrestled in Puerto Rico. He did do the whole Ohio Valley thing. He was in big time WWE matches. He's probably the most prolific wrestler in the NWA at the moment. Like I think he had more success than EC3 at that level. I feel like Trevor Murdoch is a former world tag team champion in the WWE, but I don't think his run was as memorable as Aaron Stevens. And that's not to say that these guys are bad. I'm just saying that Stevens is a very credible performer. And, they did this. He's a former national champion. He's a former world tag team champion. When Josephus passed away, they did this moment where Stevens stopped the goofy shit. Stevens stopped the comedic stuff. And Stevens wrestled Nick Aldis in a very serious match. And he did that to honor Josephus, which I kind of find ironic because I think Josephus would have been like, no, don't drop the weird shit. I love that. And not that I want to draw parallels to it, but, Jack Stain just passed away. And he was somebody who I felt like was the benchmark when it came to what your world champion should be. And I thought maybe this would be another opportunity to see Stevens take a very serious approach to this match. So I really wanted to see that match, and we didn't get it. And so I was slightly disappointed, and I didn't like how it was like, oh, who's he going to wrestle? Because I thought it was going to be straight up Stevens. Like, they advertised it, but they always had that question mark in there as well, right?
Yeah.
So when it was Carnage, I was surprised, but Carnage. But I ended up being very surprised by this match. And again, I thought it was very good. Carnage looked better than he's looked in a very long time. He hits that drop kick. It's a thing of beauty for a guy that big.
He's tall, and
he's a big guy. I've met him in person, and he is bigger than he looks on TV. And for him to connect with that move the way he did, and the match itself was pretty damn good. So again, that to me was really, really good. And I think that was probably the best part of the whole NWA Shockwave event. Now, if we want to trace our steps a little bit, I can say this with the utmost respect. I think it's time for Tim Storm to retire. I love Tim Storm. I love what he did for the NWA. But this gimmick was created to help prolong his career, teaming him with Jack Stane. I felt like they were going for something with that. Unfortunately, Jack's passed away, and you've got Tim in the ring against PB Smooth, which, give me Tim Storm from 4 years ago, and this might have been a very entertaining match. I just don't think Tim can wrestle the way he used to. And you notice that they changed it into a tag team match within
minutes. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
And just real quick, his next match too, when he returns, it's another tag team match with Brandon Beretta. And this we won't see this until probably next month, but they decided to put him back into a tag team, which I think that's all you can do with him. But at this point, like, I don't know where you go with Tim Storm.
Yeah, I really liked the Baron gimmick. I thought it was kind of breathing life into him at first. You know what I mean? After just being kind of, I guess, a little too old to be continuing. I don't want to say, like, be rude, but I am a Tim Storm fan, and I always still enjoy watching him. Maybe it's for nostalgic reasons, but maybe it's time for him to go back to the booth, because I thought he was doing an exceptional job in the booth. Maybe he could help with the booking.
According to the internet, Tim Storm is 61.
Wow, I thought he was still, I thought he was like 50s. No.
And when he became champion, I think he was in his 50s. I think he was like 52 or 53, but like, again, that was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And look, Ricky Morton can still wrestle too, but I don't want to watch Ricky Morton wrestle either. And it's nothing personal. It's just, I don't feel like it's time to let go. And where I think he would have excelled, and this is, delusions of grandeur with your pal Jay, I always wanted him to become the Harley Race to Paro's Vader. I feel like Paro, when Paro first came into the NWA, I think he had a ton of potential. It never, he got worse as he was in the NWA, but
he just disappeared too, right? I mean, was there any kind of official announcement? And I thought that he had, like you said, a ton of potential. I liked him a lot, but then he just stopped showing up.
He was at the Crockett Cup with it was Odinson and Paro versus Luke Hawk and PJ. I forgot what their tag team name was. Hawk Ari. And I think Paro messed up a spot that hurt Luke legitimately.
Oh, wow.
And I think they stopped using him after that. Please don't quote me on that. I don't know that that's news. That's just my opinion. I know Luke was injured in that match. I don't know when it was. And Luthez kind of said it too. Towards the end there, he wasn't in good shape.
Yeah.
And, for the guy that he was in All Japan, if he would have continued to be that guy, he could have been a modern day Vader. Instead, he just never was that. So, anyways, they made a makeshift tag team with Tim and I forgot his name now too. My brain isn't working anymore.
You talking about Jax?
No, for the show, him and PB Smooth.
I have it right here. Hang on, I got it somewhere. Bam Bam Malone.
Bam Bam Malone, and they took on Brandon Beretta and Pretty Boy Smooth. Now, how's this for storyline wise? Brandon Beretta will be teaming with Baron Von Storm at Hard Times 5. So make sense.
Well, this started here today. It seemed like, I don't know, he caught the claw on one of the opponents. I'm not sure who he put the claw on. And
it was on Beretta.
Was it on Beretta? And he had to be broken off, similar to how Jack Stane did. So I'm just like, I don't want them to be mocking or, you know what I mean, paying tribute, what have you. But he also looked to get emotional as well on during his facials. I'm not, so I don't think they should be going on and repeating the same thing they did with of something that was so good between him and Jack Stane, and then him and Beretta. You know what I mean? Move on and do something more creative. Go in a different creative direction. You can keep the character, just try something different.
Yeah, absolutely. So then that brings us to the other match of the night, which was
Lord,
the intergender match between DKM's least favorite wrestler ever, Hunter Drake, who is seconded by Kylie Page, as he took on Natalia Markova, who was accompanied by Brian Idol. Brian Idol recovering from an injury. At this event, Kylie wasn't cleared to wrestle either. And the stipulation was in this match is if Hunter won, that Markova couldn't challenge for the Burke. And it's something we've talked about for quite a while, that why does everything have to be so convoluted with Billy Corgan's NWA? Why can't we just have a straight up match? More so, why do we need to go with intergender for this type of a matchup? It makes little to no sense to me. And I'm not saying that Markova isn't a tough competitor, but is the women's division that lacking that you need to put her into a match with a guy? I didn't love it. In fact,
no. Go ahead. I'm sorry, and then I'll give my thought.
I just feel like Markova deserves better than this. Markova should be I get that Markova's capable. It's not a matter of capability. It's a matter of wrestling should make sense. Booking should make sense. Storyline should make sense. And it should match. And, yes, Markova just beat Tiffany Nieves. They couldn't find a single woman in Texas to wrestle Markova in just a typical match, straight up match. We had to have a stupid gimmick to go with her wrestling Hunter Drake. It just didn't make sense to me.
I can't stand intergender wrestling. So here's my thoughts on that. It's just that they were capitalizing on a trend that's pretty popular that a lot of the hot indies are doing. I literally had no interest in really watching the match. I think they kind of delivered okay. I didn't pay, as for what they were doing, but I didn't love this by any means. Natalia Markova, one tough lady there. I think she's an exceptional performer, but I don't like to watch in a match, an intergender match, like a guy beating on a woman in any way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? Whether it be part of the contest. And it really irks me that companies do intergender wrestling.
I'm torn on this, right? What I see from the WWE, what I see from AEW. Have you ever seen Moxley tear into Tony Storm? Right?
Nope.
It's happened in the past, but we don't regularly get Rhea Ripley in the ring with, John Cena.
Right.
You don't need to have matches like that. The whole point of having a women's division is that the women You should have enough equitable talent that you can build your roster around that. And I know that they've lost some pieces, but like, I don't know. To me, this wasn't it. And
Go
I
to
don't know.
Go to GCW if you want to watch that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's where that stuff takes place regularly. You know, if you're a fan of that kind of stuff, that or whatever independent, you know what I mean, that supports that kind of stuff. But legit professional wrestling companies, I don't think are going to support stuff like that.
And I honestly think that hurts. Again, what the NWA, and I said this a few weeks ago on the pre-party, the NWA is lacking identity right now. What does it want to be? Does it want to be Southern Fried Wrestling? Cool, man. You could do that. I feel like you could succeed at that because I don't feel like there's anyone doing it at a high level right now. You know, AML might be it. You could be bigger than AML. You could be Coastal Championship Wrestling. You could be the Southern Fried Wrestling promotion.
Right.
You could be a work rate promotion if you wanted to, but there's a lot of other companies ahead of you. You could be the alternative to ROH and United Wrestling Network and MLW. You could be the alternative to the WWE. You could be the alternative to TNA. Right now, I feel like they want to be WWE light. I feel like they want to be controversial like GCW, but I don't feel like they're willing to go full tilt on any of these things.
There's nothing that they're going to do that's as controversial as GCW if current. You know what I'm saying? I haven't seen anything that crazy, and I don't think they're ready to. I don't think they'll be able to pull the trigger on anything like that, and in fear of just people turning them off altogether. And if you think about it, Billy Corgan trying to do that would be kind of like watching WCW's hardcore division, if you remember that at all.
It was awful.
Yes.
It was awful. Hardcore hack.
Norman Smiley in a, padded suit or whatever,
Okay, I actually thought that was funny. But yeah, and so the problem is, and until the NWA determines what it wants to be, it's going to continue to do things like it's doing now. Basically, they're just, you ever take that spaghetti to see if that noodle's ready, throw it up against the wall, and if it sticks, that pasta's ready. That's every single TV taping they do is like, well, got the pot of spaghetti ready. Let's see what we can get to stick to the wall. And things that seem to get over organically, like, Silas Mason and
that was exactly what I was going to say. It was Silas Mason. Yes.
He got over with Pollo Del Mar very organically.
Yeah.
And if they were still together right now as a item in the NWA, I feel like he'd probably be more over than he is now with the Southern Six. Okay, they broke that up. That's cool. But now the Southern Six doesn't even seem to be a thing at this point.
It's like they're together, but not together. And then there's like two of them walking around, and then there's the other, you know what I mean? It's like it's not consistent enough, especially on TV. Like you'll all of a sudden see them in a skit in between matches, and then you never see them. You won't see them again for another month. Maybe one of them will be in a match,
Yeah. And so it's just as much as I want to see this show be good and be successful, until they have that identity, they're just a rudderless ship. Once they figure out what they want to be, then they need to figure out who they want to push. Once they figure out who they want to push, then they need to make wins and losses matter. And even without storylines, just this guy wants to wrestle this guy because before he can get to the world title, he has to beat this guy. That's all the story I need.
That's how professional wrestling's traditionally supposed to work.
Yeah. So I think this is a good stopping point.
We've torn you apart enough, NWA. So
and it's honestly it's because we care.
Yes, 100%. Those three letters mean so much to me, and that's why I get so irritated and will go off on rants on it, because I've been an NWA fan for probably over 40 years of my life.
And it's one of those things that I want to come on here and be like, guys, holy shit, did you watch Power this week? Because it was the most incredible hour of pro wrestling that you'll see. Like, Screw the WWE. Screw AEW. You want to see pro wrestling? It's here. But haven't been able to do that. Not in a while.
Not in a long time, yeah.
So, Rick, I know that you've been on the past 2 weeks, and this is week number 3. So first and foremost, I'd like to publicly thank you for helping out with the Alliance guys. I've officially declared you a member of the Alliance blog family. That entitles you to all the rights and rewards that come with it, which basically means you get a hug and a t-shirt anytime I see you. But how could people follow you on the socials? What are you up to next?
I don't really have much planned right now, to be honest with you. I am preparing to watch Bloodsport tonight and watch WrestleMania weekend, preparing for the holiday weekend. You can follow me on, Twitter, the Rick Del Santo. Instagram is where you could find me most of the time, the Rick Del Santo. So, that's my favorite social media platform, or Facebook if so inclined to jump on there.
And I know we'll see each other at Crockett Cup, but is there any other event that you'll be working before then?
I don't have anything planned. I know I do in June. Everything's after that I'm aware of. So
James X. Jackson said, maybe in an alternate universe, Jay, you'll get to say, holy shit, NWA was on fire this week. Yeah.
And that was a great show, NWA on Fire, back in the day, if you remember that.
I do.
Let's bring that.
Well, you and I have to talk about that at some point down the road. But
absolutely.
Yeah, Savoldi's were great. So I think that's going to do it for us now. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us on this Thursday. Glad to be back. Glad to spend my Thursday night with you guys. Of course, I don't know. Maybe if we get like 10 comments on this video, I'll do a pre-party on Tuesday. But you guys, if you want it, you got to ask for it. Because that was the final episode on April 1st. That was it. That was.
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that.
What do you mean, Rick? What do you mean?
I don't buy that. People, I can't tell you how many times I quit YouTube and have been back 2 weeks later. So,
And for those of you who will be at Crockett Cup, please get at my DMs because we will be hopefully doing something there before the show, maybe even after the show. I know Rick's going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're going to drag Jaden, who will probably be wearing a Lucha Libre mask there. And I'm sure we'll have other Alliance fam people there. So come on out if you can. And if you can't, then we'll see you. Wait, I got to get it ready. Damn it. It would have been so much cooler if I had it ready. We'll see you guys at the matches. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.